thank you for inviting me to come and moderate this session today. I'm very, very excited to hear from the speakers that we are going to be hearing from. And as Anna Maria mentioned earlier, these individuals are very qualified to help us move forward with some of the practices and concrete steps that we are going to need in order to integrate and achieve an integral economy. So let me explain just a little bit about the format so that you are aware of what we're going to be doing. First, I will briefly introduce each of the speakers prior to their talk. And during the talk, questions that you might have for the speaker should be addressed in the chat for the Zoom session. At the conclusion of each talk, I will ask one or two brief questions of the presenters, with the exception of Ms. Gabrielle. And then that's in case they need to leave the session before we get to our Q&A at the end of our time today. So if you would make sure that if you have questions, put them in the chat. If we don't get to your questions today during our session, the foundation will be able to provide answers for those questions at a later date. So without further ado, I'd like to ask you again to remember to please keep your microphones muted, because we would really like to be able to hear from the speakers as they go through their interventions. So I'm going to start with our first speaker, who is Mr. Francois Villeroy de Gallo, and he is the governor of the Bank of France. Mr. Villeroy de Gallo has been the governor of the Bank of France and a member of the Governing Council of the European Central Bank since 2015. He's held several positions in the French Treasury and at the Permanent Representation of France in Brussels prior to becoming Chief of Staff to the Minister of the Economy, Finance, and Industry in 1977. Prior to joining the Bank of France, he was the COO of BNP Paribas. Mr. Villeroy de Gallo will be discussing the role of central banks in a post-pandemic to support the economy. Mr. Gale, you have the floor.